Hi there. We have with us today Rowan Gibson. Rowan is a world traveler, to say the least. And Rowan, where do you find yourself today?
Right now, I'm in beautiful Costa Rica.
Well, enjoy it. I'm sure you probably won't be there for long with your schedule that you keep.
No, as a matter of fact, I'm leaving tomorrow morning for Amsterdam, and after Amsterdam, I'm in the Middle East, and from there, I'm flying straight on to Singapore. And I honestly can't remember where I am after that.
You need a GPS tracker just to remind yourself where you are,
Where I
probably.
am, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, Rowan, you are, I would describe you, and many would, as a world leader on innovation. You're international best-selling author, most recently of Innovation to the Core. And but aside from those two things, in your spare time, you're a speaker and a trainer. And when I say spare time, almost tongue-in-cheek, not that there is much, but we'll just jump right in. But as I said, you're certainly a leader on the term innovation. Innovation at this point has reached that buzzword status. So
Yeah.
from your perspective, kind of define what innovation looks like and how you define that to your to those that you work with and speak to.
Yeah, I think just a word on the buzzword thing. One of the problems with the buzzword is that everybody starts to throw the term around like it's going out of style, but it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone understands it.
Hmm.
It's a little bit like, do you remember when everyone was talking about e-business during the dot-com revolution?
Sure.
Didn't necessarily mean that anybody knew what it was. And I think we only found out what it was, after the crash.
Hmm.
And so with innovation, you see it on the front cover of Business Week and all over the place. But very few people really understand how to turn that buzzword into a core competence, and that's what I'm focused on. So when I define innovation for my audiences, there are a couple of ways to define. In fact, there are more than a couple. There are a lot of ways to define innovation, but typically people think about the light bulb and new ideas. It actually goes back to a Latin word, innovatus, which means to renew something or to reinvent something. And today we add a sort of a tagline to that, which is, it's the act of inventing something or renewing something that creates value for the customer.
Okay.
So, it's not just newness, but it's also that value that really makes an innovation. And I think, there's probably a better definition, which is that innovation is the act of introducing something new. So in that sentence, you have two things. On the one hand, you have creativity, because that's the newness, something new. But you also have the act of introducing something new, which has to do with not just creativity, but to do with courage, to
Ah.
do with risk-taking and entrepreneurial spirit. And so if you think about people like, Steve Jobs or Richard Branson, or maybe, I don't know, Larry Page and Sergey Brin of Google, what really characterizes them is not necessarily their creativity, but their ability to take the risks, to have that entrepreneurial spirit to launch something new.
Sure. Rowan, that there's great wisdom in that. That leads me to my next question, and I'm certain any leader or team you consult to and with would agree that innovation is important, but that next step of implementation, that's probably the most painful one. What's the next step? What are some of the things that you suggest to people? Innovation is important. The first step or the second step. What are some ways, concrete steps they can take to, once they recognize that need, then take the initial step to implement?
Well, I think you have to understand that there are sort of two ends to innovation. There's the front end, which is the end that gets all of the publicity. Again, all the light bulbs and the innovation campaigns and the open innovation. We were asking everybody to submit ideas and all that kind of stuff. And there's another end of innovation, which is the back end, which gets very little publicity at all.
Hmm.
And that's the area where we really need to focus, because I think any company on earth can ask its employees to submit ideas, or have an advertising campaign that's asking customers to submit ideas and so on. But the issue is, what happens to those ideas? Number one, are they any good in the first place? But number two, how do we screen them and align them with strategy? How do we start reallocating resources behind them? How do we, manage our portfolio of strategic opportunities that we've identified? How do we put them through the experimentation process, and then the pipeline, and then commercialize them and scale them? And all that stuff is the back end, and that's really what's missing in most companies.
Sure.
So where I advise companies to start is to start building a system. If you go back and think about anything you do in business, anything, we would agree that it's best to do things systematically. So most companies organize everything they do systematically except innovation. They just hope that that happens by chance. It's bolts of lightning and serendipity and luck and all that kind of thing. So
Sure.
the idea is, how do we create a system that allows that serendipity and that luck to happen more often? And the way we do that is by focusing on basically four areas of the organization. The first is leadership and infrastructure. The second is processes and tools. The third is people and skills. And the fourth is culture and values. And the system has to involve all of those components, and each of them needs to be integrated with the others in order for it to function as a system, like an engine of innovation. So I guess just finally, if you think about Google, again, Google has a front end and a back end. The front end is beautiful, it's simple, it's a white screen and a box, and you type in whatever you want to, search for. But behind that beautiful, simple front end is a really complex back end, with tens of thousands of servers all linked up together and, doing whatever it does in milliseconds around the world. And that's where the action is. The action's in the back end. And that's the same is true of building an innovation system.
Yeah. Rowan, you mentioned Google, and that leads me to my next question is, and this is probably something you're asked quite often, is innovation is something that many people will use that word, as you mentioned earlier. It's a buzzword, or it's kind of in that mold. But one of the primary questions that leaders will ask specifically is, does this have a profitability, or what is the actual return that I'm going to get on this initiative or these steps? In your book, Innovation to the Core, you cite some very real examples of these were steps that were taken by certain companies and individuals. These were the benefits of that. Give us one or two of those examples, and it may be some insight you gleaned as you were writing the book and researching the book.
Yeah, I think that the primary example that most people use today would be Apple, because if you go back to 1997, when Steve Jobs kind of made his second coming, to the company, the total stock market value of Apple was just $2 billion. And if you look at Apple today, the company's worth $540 billion.
Wow.
So the issue is, how do you go from being worth $2 billion to being worth $540 billion in the space of, 14 years or whatever?
Sure.
And the answer is innovation. It's the only answer. It's not come from downsizing, cost cutting, Six Sigma, it didn't merge with Compaq or merge with Dell or any of that other stuff. So all of that growth has come from innovation. So if we want a bottom line argument for the innovation imperative, then that's it. It's growth. The only way we're going to generate that kind of dramatic growth and wealth creation over the longer term, or even over the shorter term, is through innovation. It's not going to come from anywhere else. So we use some other examples in the book, because I think it's very easy to talk about Amazon and Google and Apple, but most of the companies out there are not Silicon Valley software firms or computer firms or whatever. They're old line manufacturing companies and service companies and so on. So we have a few examples there that I think are interesting. One of which, of course, is IBM, because they're big. I'm not sure what they are anymore. Certainly not much of a manufacturing company, more of a service company. Right. But that in itself illustrates that IBM was willing to innovate at the level of the core business model, because it's no longer international business machines. Today it's more about software and services and whatever. But IBM invites everyone across the company to get involved in the innovation process. Even people on the outside. They have a thing called Innovation Jam, which is like a 72-hour online jamming session where people can send in ideas and so on. So they've really created a system, basically a sustainable capability for innovation. Procter & Gamble, same story. P&G used to be very focused on R&D, come up with new products, go out and sell them. Now they're focused on the customer. What's the customer need? And working back from there, how do we create something that will answer that need? And in doing that, they've built a whole infrastructure for innovation, which they call Connect and Develop. And it's basically an open innovation architecture where they can source ideas from everywhere, from research labs, from entrepreneurs, from retirees, people who've left the company but still have great ideas, consumers, universities, and on and on. So P&G is a great example, and I think probably one of the strongest examples in the book is Whirlpool, the appliance manufacturer, because you don't usually think about white goods manufacturers being an innovation champion, but Whirlpool went from where they were to where they are today by building a really sustainable capability for innovation. If you want to look at the bottom line figures, they had when they started in 1999, basically zero revenues coming from innovative products. And within about 5 years, they had about $3.5 billion per year coming from new innovative products. So they went from innovation representing 0% of their top line revenues to being worth 20% of their annual revenues. Whirlpool's trained something like 30,000 people across the company in the skills and the tools of innovation. So it's a company that's taken innovation incredibly seriously. Their slogan is innovation from everyone, everywhere, and they've really made that happen. So there's a bunch of great examples like that in the book that I think impress anybody, that literally any kind of company on earth can go from being an innovation laggard to being an innovation champion.
Wow. And Rowan, I think that's probably one of the reasons you're in such high demand and in so many locations. It is a very real world application for you, and there are bottom line results, and they're provable results, and that's the reason. So often you're speaking and consulting, as we mentioned before, all over the world. I committed that I wouldn't keep you much longer than we have, but give us one tip, Rowan. You're all over the place and keeping track. We joked early on about using GPS, but so many of our viewers travel as well, not to the extent you do, but any traveling tips that you want to share with us as the globetrotter that you are.
Well, number one, I've learned how to pack suitcases pretty well. Number two, yeah, you need to have some good people that are helping you keep track of where you are and where you're going. So, if I think about my sort of support through my executive assistant, through great speaker bureaus like your own, in terms of logistics, I just follow the plan. I get a piece of paper. I call it a survival kit. It tells me where I'm going, who's going to pick me up, what time I'm supposed to be speaking, and blah, blah, blah. And I just follow what's on the paper. But I guess finally, the thing that works for me is that I don't really have much of a physical rhythm. I don't have a biorhythm because I'm always somewhere different. So most people go through life and they, wake up every day at, 6 or 7 o'clock and go to work, and they come home and they go to bed at 10 or 11. I don't have any rhythm at all, so I don't really have a problem getting up anywhere in the world at any time. As long as I get my 6 or 7 hours sleep, whether it's in a hotel or in an airport or in an airplane, I'm pretty much good to go.
You take it as it comes, it sounds like.
Exactly. I have to. It goes with the job.
Well, Rowan, you're a gifted speaker and author and communicator. We're privileged to work with you and look forward to many more events to come. For those that are watching this interview, we appreciate you joining us. There's a link below this video that will have quite a bit more information about Rowan, his skills and abilities, what he can offer to associations or corporate functions, leadership training events, and then also some access to some different videos you can watch, specifically him speaking to a group such as yours. So, Rowan, thank you so much for your time, and travel safely, and we'll speak with you again soon.
Thank you, Sean. Take care.